Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoterica and our continuing retrospective on the Ridge Racer franchise, where we review every single mainline entry in the series, talk about its pluses or minuses and where it fits into the series. And today we have a spin-off title because it was developed by Namco. This is our Racing Evolution. And when I say this game has the most hilarious storyline of any arcade racing game ever made, I 100% mean it. You start this game off as an ambulance driver taking a pit chief along for a ride in the back of your ambulance, and based upon that ambulance ride, he decides you have promise as a race car driver, gives you a job, and has you compete in a race later that day. Obviously this will never happen in the real world, but it happens here in our Racing Evolution, and this storyline takes so many weird twists and turns, and of course it is a video game from the mid-2000s, so it's got to have some impossible cleavage in there as well, but you'll see that in a moment. Before I get too far involved though, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like and subscribe, and ring that notification bell, definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, got a Patreon link down below as well. But if you've never played our Racing Evolution, you might be wondering what it is. It's basically Namco's take on trying to be a Gran Turismo while also trying to be a little bit of a Sega Rally at the same time. There is not really any drifting in this game outside of sim mechanics. This is not going to be an arcade racer in any way, shape, or form, although it definitely is much lighter of a sim than something like Gran Turismo. And obviously, around this era, arcade racing games started to lose a little bit of their draw with audiences. People really loved the sim-type games. They were doing huge numbers, so Namco decided, we've been racing games since the early 90s. Of course, we can compete in the same genre, so they make our Racing Evolution. And while it is a completely competent game, it isn't a Ridge Racer game as far as the physics or control are concerned. Now, I'm not going to strike it for that because that's not what it's trying to be. It's trying to be a Gran Turismo game, so you kind of have to review it under that guise. And I will say, even though this got mixed reviews back in the day, the racing here, the courses, the real-world cars compared to the imaginary cars in Ridge Racer definitely do work. And this isn't going to reach the Gran Turismo levels of sim or even impression, but it does have a really fun feel to it. And of course, because it is Namco, it's got a little bit of wackiness going on as well. Graphically, it definitely tones down all of those bright, colorful, cheery colors you saw in the previous games, going for way more of a real-world look. And that's what this game is trying to be, a real-world race car game versus that over-the-top arcade racing that Namco brought us with every other entry in the franchise. And I am playing this on Dolphin because it is a GameCube game and I think it's the best version of the game as far as the graphics are concerned. But you'll see here going into the corner, you really have to deal with the brake a lot. Here you have to deal with every single car's physics and handling curve, and you need to learn each and every single vehicle. If you do not try to get practiced and better at this game, you are never going to get anywhere in the storyline. So there is a really nice learning progression to it, and it does kind of hook you in. It is Ridge Racer if Ridge Racer was basically Gran Turismo in all the best ways possible. Unfortunately, with this story, it kind of opens up a little bit too slow, giving you so many training missions. It'll fight you a little bit to actually get into the meat of the game, but once you get over that hump and actually start competing, the game definitely opens up and can be a lot of fun. But I totally understand when this game came out, this is what people didn't want from the Ridge Racer franchise. They wanted over-the-top arcade racing, big drifts, big jumps, a ridiculous soundtrack, and just over-the-top poppy, colorful vibes going on, and that's not what you're getting here. But if you can basically pretend this game isn't in the Ridge Racer series and treat it as its own entry, it's like an also ran B+ tier Gran Turismo, and I do like it about that. And I think that is the fun part about being able to review games way beyond the release date, because I don't have to think about this game too much in the context of the Ridge Racer franchise, because it is over a decade and a half later that I am reviewing it, so I can just kind of take it as it is and say it is a super competent sim-style racing game. But of course it is still a Ridge Racer game, and I said impossible cleavage, and I meant it. This game's storyline, again, is just so over-the-top insane. Basically has a rivalry between you and one of the other characters, and it just doesn't really make much sense. This is stuff that you're not going to see in Gran Turismo. This was Namco being Namco and trying to arcadeify it a little bit, at least in the storyline, and hoping that a deep-cut racing suit would bring the crowds in. I don't really think it worked in this context. And of course, you know it is a Ridge Racer franchise game made by Namco, so it's going to have a really fun soundtrack like every other game. So go ahead and listen for 45 seconds, and I'll come back and talk more about the title.
Once you feel the handling on this car, you'll wonder why you've been driving an ambulance all these years.
That's the type of soundtrack you would expect out of a Ridge Racer game trying to cosplay as a Gran Turismo game. Definitely those beats that are going to help you drive a little bit. Now, as far as the driving is concerned, we got to talk about the physics and handling engine in this game. It definitely hews towards the sim side of things, but it is not anywhere near as simmy as the biggest sims out there. You can kind of force your car into turns and go a little bit light on the brake, and the game's going to give you a little bit of an assist. You'll see here in this one race, the brake assist is on because it is the first race in the game. You can keep assist on, or you can turn everything off, and for every other race I had that brake assist off, but honestly, for a sim, it is a light sim, so if you're trying to actually get into the genre, especially back in the day, this may be a good place to start, because it's going to test you. It's not going to allow you just to have free victories, but it's not going to beat you over the head so hard with the sim aspect that you're going to get bored or upset with the game, because I will say, stuff like Gran Turismo, especially the games on PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2, could sometimes feel impenetrable. I always enjoyed playing them, but even I got a little bit tired towards the later half of the game, and it would just absolutely fight you. But again, the number one thing that stands out about this game is just how over the top the story is. It almost plays like parody. I'm going to see here on the podium talking about her future in racing. It's just kind of the weirdest thing possible you could put in a racing game. Kind of feels a little bit like Forza Horizon before Horizon would ever happen, because that is another franchise that has great racing and an absolutely ridiculous nonsensical story. But you will see here as we move further into the training, this game also tries to be Sega Rally at the same time. There are going to be rally stages and rally races in this game, so you basically have to train on them before they let you race on them. And I would say this is where the drifting mechanic kind of doesn't hold up. When you're playing that Gran Turismo style sim on an actual race course, it really does work. But here you do want to kind of try to drift the car around the corner a little bit. But it does fight you every once in a while. When I play levels like this, I would say the sensation of speed isn't there, and it just makes me want to go play Initial D or Sega Rally or any of the other rally-based games out there that could do it better. So our Racing Evolution is definitely across the board a completely uneven game. Some of the race courses, some of the races are absolutely epic. Other ones like this rally course here, definitely kind of a bit of a snooze fest. There's also not much life going on the side of the track, so it kind of feels a little bit like a barren world. So it's really a mixed bag depending on what version of our Racing Evolution you're talking about. Are you talking about the course racing, or are you talking about the rally racing? The rally racing, I would say, is definitely in the C- territory. It just doesn't do it for me in any way, shape, or form. So what it really seems like is our Racing Evolution was trying to be every single racing genre at once outside of arcade racing. It tried to be everything for everyone. When you try to be everything for everyone, you're usually short in at least one department and you let somebody down. And the rally racing definitely is the version of this game that just doesn't really hold any sort of interest in me whatsoever. If you could just remove these from the title, I would definitely give it a higher mark, but when I got to the rally stages, again, having not played this game for some years, I remembered I just really wasn't that into them. But other than that, the presentation, the graphics, the music, the handling, everything else about this game is a total fun time, and especially when you have this golden hour race right here, it just 100% works. And that's the thing about our Racing Evolution. When it hits well, and when it misses, it takes a whiff and completely just kind of screws up the entirety of it. You have to decide whether or not you actually want to tackle the game because of that. But I would say, as far as sim games are concerned, Ridge Racer never really had to try to go into the genre, but you have to understand the accounting department, the marketing department, look at what's working for other companies, and they say, we want a piece of that pie. So when sim racing games are hitting around this era, you know full well somebody higher up at Namco said, we have to make one for ourselves, and our Racing Evolution is the product you get out of it. But honestly, for the weird storyline alone, it is worth playing just to see ridiculous over-the-top voice acting and storylines, and to see somebody get a race car driver's job day one and be forced into competing in a race just because they were pretty good at driving an ambulance. If that's the case, then emergency call ambulance on the Sega Model 3, every one of those ambulance drivers should be driving in NASCAR today. But short of that, we are done. We have one more episode in this retrospective, then we're moving on to something completely different. Please leave me a comment down below and tell me, did you play our Racing Evolution back in the day, and have you played it recently, and if so, what are your thoughts? But short of that, we're done. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys next time. And remember, if you're a good ambulance driver, you too can be a race car driver. Bye-bye.